Behind the glamour, the spotlights, and the perfect smiles, old Hollywood was hiding something darker. For every red carpet, there was a cover-up. For every love story sold to the public, there was a secret that could end a career overnight. Studios spent millions building perfect images, and just as much money burying the truth. Some stars survived what happened to them. Others never recovered. And a few scandals were so explosive, they didn't just end careers, they changed the entire industry forever. Stick around, because scandal number 7 involves a murder that was never officially solved, and it's still talked about today. Fatty Arbuckle. He was the highest paid star in Hollywood, until one weekend destroyed everything. Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle was beloved, funny, and rich beyond imagination, a comedy king who could fill any theater in America. Then, in September 1921, he hosted a wild party at a San Francisco hotel. A young actress named Virginia Rappe fell critically ill during the gathering and died days later. Rumors spread instantly, and they were vicious. Newspapers accused Arbuckle of assault, painting him as a monster before a single fact was confirmed. What happened next shocked Hollywood. He stood trial not once, not twice, but 3 times. The first 2 ended in hung juries. The third acquitted him completely, with the jury even issuing a formal apology for what he'd endured. But it didn't matter. The damage was already done. His films were banned. His name became a punchline for scandal itself. A man proven innocent in court was still guilty in the eyes of the public, and Hollywood learned a brutal lesson that day: image could be destroyed far faster than it could ever be rebuilt. William Desmond Taylor. This next scandal wasn't just gossip, it was a murder that Hollywood never solved. William Desmond Taylor was a respected film director, admired for his talent and his mysterious charm. In February 1922, he was found shot dead in his own bungalow. There was no forced entry. No missing valuables. Just a body, and a house full of secrets. As police dug deeper, they uncovered a tangled web of love affairs, blackmail letters, and jealous rivals connected to some of the era's biggest stars. Actress Mabel Normand had visited him hours before his death. Another actress, Mary Miles Minter, was reportedly infatuated with him, and love letters bearing her name were found at the scene. Studios panicked, terrified their biggest names would be dragged into a murder investigation. Evidence mysteriously vanished. Witnesses changed their stories. The case was never solved, and it destroyed multiple careers in the process, guilty or not. To this day, no one knows who pulled the trigger. And what happened to the actress connected to it next proves scandal in old Hollywood rarely stayed contained to just one person. Mary Astor. She wasn't accused of murder, but her own words nearly buried her anyway. In 1936, actress Mary Astor was in the middle of a bitter custody battle over her daughter, and her ex-husband found the one weapon that could destroy her: her private diary. Inside were detailed, intimate entries about her love affairs, including one with a married playwright. When portions were leaked to the press, it became the most talked about scandal in America. Newspapers printed excerpts daily. The public devoured every detail. Studio executives were horrified, certain her career was finished, certain no audience would accept her again. But behind the cameras, the truth was more complicated. Astor refused to hide or apologize. She walked into court, and later onto film sets, with quiet defiance. Remarkably, she didn't just survive the scandal, she won an Academy Award that same year for The Great Lie. Her story proved something Hollywood didn't want to admit: sometimes the public was more forgiving than the studios ever gave them credit for. But not every star would be so lucky. Errol Flynn. He was the swashbuckling hero of a generation, until his private life became a national headline. In 1942, Errol Flynn was charged with statutory rape, accused by 2 teenage girls in a case that gripped the entire country. The trial was sensational, filling courtrooms and front pages for weeks. Flynn's charm, his confidence on the stand, and his defense team's aggressive strategy ultimately led to an acquittal on all charges. He walked out of that courtroom a free man. But something strange happened next. Instead of ending his career, the trial seemed to fuel it. The phrase, "in like Flynn," entered American slang, a wink-wink nod to his reputation. Audiences didn't turn away, they showed up in bigger numbers, drawn by the very scandal that should have ruined him. It revealed an uncomfortable truth about fame at the time: for a male star, scandal could sometimes become mythology instead of destruction. But that same forgiveness was almost never extended to the women of Hollywood, and the next story proves exactly how differently the industry treated its brightest actresses. Ingrid Bergman. America adored her as the picture of innocence and grace, until she made a choice that turned the entire country against her. Ingrid Bergman had played saints and heroines on screen, beloved for roles that made her feel untouchable, almost sacred to American audiences. Then, in 1949, while still married, she began a very public affair with Italian director Roberto Rossellini and became pregnant with his child. The backlash was immediate and brutal. She was denounced on the floor of the United States Senate, labeled a moral disgrace by pastors and politicians alike. Her films were pulled from theaters. Hollywood, the industry that had built her into a symbol of purity, turned its back on her completely. She left America and didn't return to Hollywood films for years. What happened next shocked everyone who thought her career was over. She eventually returned, older, wiser, and won another Academy Award, proving that even the deepest scandal couldn't erase real talent. But her exile revealed just how merciless Hollywood could be toward women who dared to live outside the script written for them. Charlie Chaplin. He was the most famous man on earth, and America still turned on him completely. Charlie Chaplin had defined comedy itself, adored across the globe as the Little Tramp. But off-screen, his personal life became a magnet for controversy, including a highly publicized paternity suit in the 1940s involving a young actress named Joan Barry. Blood tests at the time actually indicated he wasn't the father, yet the court ruled against him anyway, forcing him to pay support regardless. It was only the beginning of his downfall. Chaplin's political views, combined with suspicion during the Red Scare, made him a target of the FBI and conservative press. Fans had no idea what was really happening behind closed doors in Washington. In 1952, while Chaplin was traveling abroad, the U.S. government revoked his re-entry permit, effectively banning him from the country he had called home for decades. The man who made the world laugh was exiled for 20 years. He didn't return until 1972, to a standing ovation at the Academy Awards, a moment that brought grown men to tears. But not every scandal in this list ended with forgiveness. Lana Turner. This scandal involved a knife, a teenage daughter, and a death that shocked the entire nation. Lana Turner was a glamorous sex symbol, one of the biggest stars of her era, but her personal life was far from perfect. She was involved in a turbulent, abusive relationship with a man named Johnny Stompanato, a small-time gangster with a violent temper. In April 1958, during a heated confrontation in Turner's own home, Stompanato was fatally stabbed. The person holding the knife was Turner's 14-year-old daughter, Cheryl Crane, who claimed she was protecting her mother from Stompanato's violence. The case exploded into a media circus overnight. A coroner's jury ultimately ruled it justifiable homicide, and no charges were filed against the teenager. But the scandal exposed something the studios had desperately tried to hide: the terrifying reality behind Turner's glossy image. Her career could have ended instantly. Instead, audiences rallied behind her, and she returned to film just months later in Imitation of Life, delivering one of the most successful performances of her career. Few scandals revealed the private cost of fame quite like this one. Robert Mitchum. He was Hollywood's tough guy, and in 1948, that image nearly got him thrown in jail. Robert Mitchum was arrested in a police raid for marijuana possession, an almost unthinkable scandal in an era when drug use was treated as a moral catastrophe rather than a personal struggle. Newspapers ran his mugshot on the front page. Studio executives were certain his career was over before it even had time to fully begin. He served jail time, a rare and humiliating punishment for a leading man of his stature. And this was only the beginning of the shock. Instead of fading away in disgrace, Mitchum leaned into the scandal rather than running from it. His tough, unbothered public persona actually matched the outlaw image the press had painted, and audiences found him more compelling, not less. He went on to have one of the longest, most respected careers in Hollywood history. His story became one of the earliest examples of a star surviving true public disgrace, not through apology, but through sheer unshakable confidence.